Your Denver Broncos are a day away from the start of rookie minicamp, and we get some fantastic news about the types of dudes Sean Payton was able to procure not only in the NFL draft, but also some great news about some undrafted guys. We get news about the schedule being released a little earlier than we had even thought. That and way more in this video. If you're new to the channel, I'm a diehard Denver Broncos fan named Ben. Helps me in the YouTube algorithm out a ton. If you like the Broncos, if you would like and subscribe. So some advanced analytics came out and posted this here. This is from Football Insights, and they put out the average age of each of the draft picks from this year's NFL draft. And you see that the Denver Broncos definitely have a type. They by far drafted the oldest players in this year's NFL draft. And while some are saying that that's a bad thing, that you want young dudes, like I think that Sean Payton is sticking exactly to the Bill Parcells playbook for how you go about drafting. Here's Bill Parcells' rules when you're drafting a quarterback, and it applies to these lessons apply to just drafting anyone. We've seen last year Devon Vele. Everyone was like, who's Devon Vele? And then he gets 8 targets in that first game against the Seattle Seahawks. And if it wasn't for a rib injury, probably would have had the most catches of a rookie last year. Bo Nix was an old guy, and they're like, oh, he's too old to be good. But Bill Parcells, who is the coaching mentor for Sean Payton, came out and laid out these rules like, hey, draft a senior because you need time and maturity to develop into a professional quarterback. You need to be graduated so that you take your responsibility seriously. And so I think it is fantastic news that the Broncos led the entire league in drafting older players because Sean Payton has a type. And before you're dismissive of that and like, oh, we need young dudes, the average age is 23 and a half, still very, very young, obviously in football years. And I think it's a great thing because that's how you know what a kid's character truly is. You're not getting an 18-year-old, you're getting a 23-year-old who you can vet their character. This is why we ended up drafting the most former team captains of any other team in the NFL, and I think it's a fantastic, fantastic thing. We also get more news just about Sean Payton's 7th-round draft pick that folks were hating on immediately, and obviously this is the guy who we're saying is the future Jimmy Graham, the tight end in waiting. I think this year we're going to see a ton of Evan Ingram, and I think he's going to be the most productive tight end we've had since Julius Thomas and open up the middle of the field, but he is over the age of 30, and so we need somebody waiting in the wings, and rather than trading up for a Colston Loveland or trading up for a Tyler Warren, I think Sean Payton got his guy, and we're finding out today because of this incredible article in the Denver Gazette why Caleb Lohner or Lohner was his dude. And so what you're seeing here is that played basketball for a long, long time and so many connections here to the Denver Broncos. He played basketball both at Brigham Young University and for the Baylor Bears. And some cool things here that his Baylor coach came out and said while he didn't end up leading our team in starting minutes, he got the award that they give out there is called the Mr. 95 award. And it's what are you doing the 95% of the time that the ball's not in your hand? It's jumping for loose balls. It's playing great defense. It's boxing out. It's hustling down the court. And that in the 2023-2024 basketball season, he got that award 10 times. Although he didn't have crazy production playing college basketball, this is just an amazing thing. Like that's what you want. You want Mr. 95 being our future tight end. On top of that, you see that he's betting on himself. So he had the opportunity to stay at Baylor and play basketball where he had an NIL deal where he was getting name, image, likeness, cash thrown to him to be on billboards for cars and stuff like that. And the University of Utah reached out to him and said, hey, if you come and play basketball and football here, we don't have any NIL money here, but we think you have a better chance of being drafted in the NFL than in NBA. And obviously that was the truth. And so you see here that, yes, he bet on himself, turned away money because he knew he could play in the NFL. Then we're starting to hear more and more about all the teams that actually wanted him. So people saying, oh, we could have waited and gotten him undrafted. Absolutely not true. The Indianapolis Colts had a deal in place to sign him to an undrafted free agent deal, which is crazy because they already got Tyler Warren in the draft. They already had a tight end, yet they still wanted our guy. And then on top of that, Patriots head coach Mike Vrabel reached out and called him. And you think, like, if Mike Vrabel is in love with a tight end, that's the type of guy you want here because Vrabel has a type as well. He's very Sean Payton-ian in his thinking, and I love the fact. And then you're hearing also the Jets wanted him, the Houston Texans wanted him, and obviously the New England Patriots wanted him. And then his college coach came out and said, Yeah, he only had a couple catches, and all of his catches were for touchdowns or 2-point conversions, and we had a great tight end room. But if I had one more year with him, he probably would have been a day 2 guy rather than a day 3 guy, and he would have been an every down tight end for us. So his coach, Whittingham, who coached Tim Patrick, who coached Vele, is basically like, yeah, you give me one more year with him, and he's a full-time tight end. So this is just a glowing report and the type of football guy that we want, and we're just seeing, in addition to that, his agent played tight end for Sean Payton with the New Orleans Saints. And so this is just an incredible thing here, that he kind of came out and said, hey, I know what it takes to play tight end for Sean Payton, and I think this guy is going to be a great tight end for Sean Payton. So absolutely loving that, and excited to see the future. Seeing him in goal line packages is going to be ridiculous. We already talked about the fact that he's almost got 15 feet in the air that Bo Nix can put the ball because of his height, his reach, and his athletic jump. So that's incredible. Also getting some advanced analytics just on how great the pickup of Pat Bryant out of the University of Illinois is, that he had 1 drop in his 78 targets last year. And how many times, I've seen the cut up on Twitter recirculated, how many times did we have drops in that game against the Buffalo Bills? Having a sure-handed receiver who can separate, who Sean Payton says, watching his tape reminds me of Michael Thomas. I'm just wildly excited about that, and knowing that he had that type of production in the Big Ten without a quarterback that any of us can name. Very, very excited. Then we get even more great news about Clay Webb. Now, Clay Webb was an undrafted guy who we gave guaranteed money to, a great sign that he's going to be making this team. And he's the one who's got the very, very checkered past where he's involved in a federal lawsuit. And the great news on that federal lawsuit is that it is over and in his rearview mirror. So they closed, the federal lawsuit actually ended before the draft even took place, but they waited to announce it till this week, which is just a really crummy thing for Clay Webb. I feel horrible for him because he wouldn't have fallen. And a lot of the details of that story, it was a juvenile prank gone wrong. It was disgusting. I'd be livid if it happened to my kid, but there was no ill intent with what ended up happening. And I think the Broncos are getting an absolute steal because coming out of high school, he was ranked over Jaden Daniels, over Bo Nix, was the top 20 player in all of college, in all of high school football to get recruited. And he went to Georgia. But imagine being an 18-year-old kid with this looming over your head, and you're on national headlines and you're on ESPN and Pat McAfee show. So just a totally horrible thing for him. But I think this is going to end up being an absolute steal for the Broncos, because had this thing not been hanging over his head, he absolutely would have been drafted. And this article by Mike Kliss points out that scouts had him as the 3rd best center in all of football, and we get him as an undrafted guy, and that he probably should have been drafted in the 4th round. And if all these character concerns were dismissed, which now they legally have been dismissed, you were talking him going way earlier than he did. So you're getting a Georgia boy with a chip on his shoulder who Sean Payton has vetted, and I'm just wildly excited about what he can be, because you saw him ball out of control. His stats at Jackson State are just mind-numbingly amazing, and knowing that we already have one of the highest paid offensive lines in football, and we've got our center up for a new deal this year. And man, if we could figure out Clay Webb can be that guy for the next 4 years, that's a huge win for us. So really excited about that. Then we get news that makes me even more hyped about RJ Harvey than I was going into the draft. So we knew that Jacksonville Jaguars were furious with themselves that they didn't get RJ Harvey and wanted to trade up, even though they'd already traded up for Travis Hunter. Well, now it's coming out that the Jacksonville Jaguars are probably going to start Bashal Tutin, the Virginia Tech running back, over Travis Etienne. So if their second best option is still better than a really good running back in Travis Etienne, how good is RJ Harvey going to be? And all of the questions about, is he going to be a day 1 starter? I think absolutely he's going to be, because the Jacksonville Jaguars are starting their option B to RJ Harvey. So I think RJ Harvey is going to get 1,000 yards rushing, and I think that's something you can just go ahead and put in the bank. We've got a ton of just great news about people just hyped about our rookie class and what the defensive additions that we have. Obviously, the defensive additions that we got with Quay Robinson, obviously Jahdae Barron. I think our defense is going to be nasty next year, and we're hearing a bunch of former players from the no-fly zone come out and just gush about what this team has. Chris Harris Jr. came out and said, yeah, I know we had the no-fly zone, but this team has no defensive weaknesses going into the season. DeMarcus Ware came out and just gushed about Nick Bonito. talking about how Nick Bonito reminds him of essentially Shaq Barrett and Von Miller rolled into one package. And you're a guy who helped us win the Super Bowl is comparing Nick Bonito to those guys. And we, on the other side, we've got the best defensive player in football in Pat Surtain. We get the most versatile corner in the draft in Jahdae Barron. We got young guys waiting in the wings. I think this is going to be an epic time to be a Denver Broncos fan. And the other epic news is that we're probably not going to have to wait quite as long as we thought we were for the schedule release. So we are hearing that while the official schedule release is May 15th, the NFL is going to strategically be releasing a couple of big games. And so on Monday, they're releasing the NBC Monday night games. Prime Video game is getting released Monday, May 12th, but the exciting thing for us is that we are probably going to hear about the international games by Tuesday of next week. So we should hear our primetime games before the NFL schedule actually gets released. And since the Broncos are good and the hypes are so high on this team, we're being flexed into games last year. I think you're going to be staying up much later, as I think the Broncos are going to have the max number of primetime games this year. That's definitely my prediction and kind of my hope. Like, I don't want to have to stay up till 1 a.m. every night, but very, very hyped for things to come in Broncos country. We got so much to believe in. Why couldn't I made that yesterday for the Nuggets? Come on.